How does someone spend 4 decades under Hollywood's brightest lights and still make you do a double take today? Michelle Pfeiffer was never just another star. She was the standard. But what she looks like now isn't the full story. The real shock is how she's moving, choosing, and reinventing herself in ways that make the industry chase her pace. This isn't a nostalgia tour. It's a present tense reveal. A woman who pressed pause, rewired her priorities, and came back sharper, calmer, and more in command than ever. The headlines talk about her age. The cameras can't stop on that face. But the part no one expects, what she's building now, and why it's catching everyone off guard. By the end, you won't just be staring. You'll understand how she flipped the script on Hollywood's timeline and set her own. Ready? Because the moment you think you've got her figured out, the next chapter lands even harder. But that wasn't the whole story. Before Michelle Pfeiffer became the woman every director wanted in their frame, she was just a shy girl from Santa Ana, California. The kind of person you'd never expect to dominate movie screens. She wasn't born into show business or fame. Her father worked in air conditioning, her mother was a housewife, and Michelle spent her teenage years trying to blend in, not stand out. Acting wasn't the plan. It was almost an accident. In the late 70s, she joined a beauty pageant because a friend convinced her it might be fun. She didn't know that a talent agent was sitting in the audience that night. That small-town event turned into a doorway to Hollywood, one she almost didn't step through. But curiosity won, and once she got a taste of the screen, she knew she couldn't go back. Her first few years were rough. She landed minor TV roles in low-budget films that barely made a ripple. Critics didn't take her seriously, and casting directors saw her as just another pretty face. Hollywood was full of them, but Michelle had something different, an edge she couldn't hide even when she tried. There was a quiet power behind the soft-spoken girl, and when she walked into an audition for Scarface in 1983, that power exploded. The now famous story goes that during her audition with Al Pacino, she got so lost in her character, the icy wounded Elvira Hancock, that she accidentally cut him with a broken glass prop. Pacino didn't flinch. He knew instantly she was perfect for the role. When Scarface hit theaters, Michelle didn't just hold her own next to Pacino. She outshined him in scene after scene. Her performance was raw, unsettling, and magnetic. Hollywood had its new obsession. By the late 80s, she was unstoppable. The Witches of Eastwick, Married to the Mob, Dangerous Liaisons, every performance added another layer to her legend. Then came The Fabulous Baker Boys, where her sultry rendition of Making Whoopee on a Piano became one of the most iconic movie moments of the decade. She earned Oscar nominations, magazine covers, and a reputation as someone who could turn any role into gold. But behind the glamour, Michelle was uneasy. The same fame that made her a household name also turned her life into a microscope. Interviews, gossip columns, red carpets, it never stopped. Everyone wanted more of her, but she started to wonder how much of herself was left to give. Hollywood was thrilled with its newest goddess. Michelle Pfeiffer, however, was beginning to question whether she wanted to keep being one, and that quiet question would soon lead to a choice nobody expected, because sometimes the most powerful move a star can make is to walk away. Before we move on, what's your favorite Pfeiffer moment from her early career? Drop it in the comments below. You'll see why it matters as this story unfolds. Just when it seemed like Michelle Pfeiffer had conquered everything Hollywood could offer, she did something almost no one expected. She vanished. No farewell interviews, no dramatic goodbye, just a quiet retreat from the chaos that had built her name. It wasn't burnout, it was clarity. In 1993, at the height of her fame, Michelle married television writer and producer David E. Kelley, the creative mind behind hits like Ally McBeal and Big Little Lies. To Hollywood, it looked like a power couple in the making. But Michelle wasn't chasing more red carpets or magazine covers. What she wanted was time. Real, uninterrupted time. The kind she'd never had since Scarface had turned her into a global name. Not long after, she became a mother. 2 children. A husband who valued privacy, and a home far away from flashing cameras. While the rest of Hollywood fought to stay relevant, Michelle stepped back and decided to let the noise fade. She moved north, away from Los Angeles, away from the industry's constant scrutiny. The decision confused fans and frustrated studios. They wanted her back, but Michelle refused to take roles that would pull her away from her family for months at a time. Some directors called her too selective. Others whispered that she was finished. But behind the headlines, Michelle was just choosing something the industry rarely respects: balance. She wasn't running away from acting. She was running towards something more important: life itself. In later interviews, she admitted how hard that shift was. "I got so wrapped up in my work that everything else started to feel small," she said. "And I didn't want to look back and realize I missed the good parts." For nearly a decade, she focused on raising her kids and being present, not performing. She cooked, gardened, read, and quietly rediscovered what it felt like to be anonymous again. Of course, Hollywood doesn't like letting go of its icons. Rumors started swirling that she'd retired for good, that she'd lost her passion, that she couldn't handle the competition of younger stars. But none of that was true. Michelle was simply recharging. While others were chasing attention, she was collecting perspective. By the early 2000s, when her children were older, something in her began to shift again. The world had changed, and so had she. New stories started calling to her, deeper, quieter, more layered ones. It wasn't about fame anymore. It was about purpose. The break that some thought had ended her career actually redefined it. She'd left Hollywood on her own terms, and when she came back, she was stronger, sharper, and completely in control. Because in a town obsessed with youth and constant motion, Michelle Pfeiffer did the unthinkable. She slowed down, and that's exactly what kept her timeless. But her comeback, that would take everyone by surprise. If you're still watching, make sure to hit subscribe. Michelle's return to the spotlight is one of the most unexpected and inspiring comebacks Hollywood's ever seen. When Michelle Pfeiffer finally stepped back into the spotlight, it wasn't with a loud announcement or a desperate comeback tour. It was quiet, like she'd been waiting for the world to catch up. After years away from the grind, she returned not as the ingenue Hollywood remembered, but as a woman who had lived, raised a family, and no longer cared about proving anything. And somehow that confidence made her more magnetic than ever. Her first few roles after her hiatus reminded audiences why they missed her. Films like Stardust and Hairspray in the mid-2000s showed a playful, renewed energy. She wasn't chasing perfection anymore. She was having fun. For someone who once felt trapped by fame, Michelle suddenly looked free. Even critics noticed. They described her performances as liberated, fearless, and unexpectedly warm. That shift in tone wasn't just about acting. It was about perspective. She had nothing left to prove. Then came a new chapter that surprised even her most loyal fans. As the streaming era reshaped Hollywood, Michelle found herself drawn to the kinds of projects that didn't exist when she first started. Stories written for adults, led by complex women, free from the glossy filters of studio expectations. She began to collaborate with fresh voices and daring directors, reinventing what a Michelle Pfeiffer role could mean. By 2025, her resurgence was undeniable. She was honored with a hand and footprint ceremony at the TCL Chinese Theater, a symbol reserved for Hollywood legends. Standing there, pressing her palms into the cement, she looked radiant but grounded, like someone who finally understood her place in the story. For decades, the industry had tried to define her. Now she was defining herself, and she wasn't slowing down. That same year, she took on a lead role in Oh What Fun!, a holiday comedy slated for release in late 2025. The premise was light, but the choice said something deeper. Michelle was embracing joy, humor, and the kind of warmth that only comes with experience. Around the same time, she signed on to produce and star in Margot's Got Money Troubles, an Apple TV Plus series set to debut in 2026, blending drama, comedy, and her own sense of wit. Unlike the perfection-driven early years, this phase of her career was about experimentation, curiosity, and control, but the role that really captured headlines was her upcoming turn in The Madison, a Yellowstone spin-off created by Taylor Sheridan. The project marked Michelle's first real step into the world of prestige television. Playing a complex character in the heart of Sheridan's universe, she was entering a new creative era, one that bridged generations. It wasn't about staying relevant, it was about evolving, and she made it look effortless. When asked in interviews how she feels about acting now, Michelle's answer is simple: "I'm finally relaxed. I'm finally enjoying it." That single sentence reveals everything. The pressure's gone. The fear of fading has vanished. She's no longer the young woman who accidentally cut Al Pacino in an audition. She's the seasoned artist who knows exactly when to strike and when to stay silent. Her resurgence isn't loud or flashy. It's controlled, intentional, and rooted in gratitude. While many stars chase constant exposure, Michelle chooses her moments like a painter choosing colors. Every move matters. Every appearance feels earned, and that sense of calm power, after decades in a storm, is what truly makes her stand out. Because this isn't a comeback story, it's a continuation, written by someone who finally realized she never needed to compete with anyone but herself. But the real transformation wasn't just professional, it was personal, and it would reshape how the world saw her forever. For years, Michelle Pfeiffer kept her personal life sealed behind quiet dignity. No tabloids, no oversharing, no public spectacle. But in 2024, she let the world in on a secret that caught everyone by surprise. She had become a grandmother for the very first time. The revelation didn't come through a glossy magazine or red carpet interview. It slipped out during a casual conversation, almost like she forgot she was Michelle Pfeiffer, Hollywood royalty. "I've been very quiet about it," she said, smiling. "But it's heaven." The comment sent fans into a frenzy. They couldn't believe the woman who once ruled the silver screen as a dangerous beauty in Scarface and Batman Returns was now talking about babysitting and bedtime stories. But for Michelle, it wasn't about labels or perception. Becoming a grandmother wasn't the end of an era. It was the beginning of another kind of grace. She spoke about how the experience changed her outlook entirely. In her own words, she no longer had the time nor the desire to go that deep for that long and not be present. That sentence said everything. For decades, Michelle had lived in characters, fully, obsessively, sometimes painfully. Now, for the first time in her life, she wanted to live in herself. The change wasn't just emotional, it showed on her face, in the way she carried herself, even in how she approached work. Instead of hiding behind the perfection Hollywood demanded, she began to embrace something more natural, a kind of quiet authenticity that radiated through every new appearance. At 67, she no longer needed to chase youth or relevance. She embodied something far rarer, peace. Friends describe her as more open now, more grounded, more willing to laugh at the absurdity of fame. In interviews, she talks about being in awe of her children and now her grandchild, rather than her own legacy. "They're the real work," she said once, half joking. But you can sense she meant it. The same woman who once turned down countless scripts to stay home with her kids is now celebrating the next generation and finding a new rhythm in life because of it. This version of Michelle Pfeiffer doesn't seem concerned with the next big role or the next awards season. She's not retreating from Hollywood, but she's not chasing it either. She's simply existing on her own terms. And somehow, that makes her presence even more powerful. Because while many stars struggle to age gracefully under the weight of expectation, Michelle seems to have cracked the code. She stopped trying to impress anyone, and that's exactly what made her fascinating again. It's not just that she looks incredible at 67, though she does. It's that she's living proof that power in Hollywood doesn't have to fade, it just evolves. But if you think this new chapter softened her presence, wait until you see how she commands attention today, not for who she was, but for who she's become. When Michelle Pfeiffer walks into a room today, time seems to hesitate. There's something almost unreal about how she's aged, not because she looks the same, but because she looks so completely herself. In a culture obsessed with youth, she's managed to evolve without erasing the years that made her who she is. In 2025, fans were stunned when an old family photo resurfaced online. It showed Michelle in the 1980s, standing between her siblings, smiling almost unrecognizable to some. The comments flooded in, "She hasn't aged a day. How does she look even better now?" But the truth is, she hasn't been trying to stay young. She's been trying to stay real. Unlike many stars of her era, Michelle has never hidden from the natural process of aging. "I certainly see that I've changed," she said in a recent interview. "I just try not to dwell on it." That balance, accepting the change but never surrendering to it, is what gives her that quiet, striking presence that still turns heads. It's not about looking 30 again. It's about carrying 67 with elegance and strength. Her appearance at the TCL Chinese Theater ceremony earlier this year captured that essence perfectly. Dressed in simple black, hair flowing freely, she looked calm and radiant, standing beside the concrete slab that now bears her name forever. The moment wasn't about nostalgia. It was about endurance, about surviving decades in an industry that worships the temporary. Beyond acting, Michelle's ventures tell the same story. Her fragrance brand, Henry Rose, became a personal passion project, a transparent, eco-friendly line that reflects the honesty she's come to value. It's clean, elegant, and unpretentious, just like her. The business isn't just a side project. It's a statement about authenticity, in a world that often rewards illusion. What keeps people talking about Michelle Pfeiffer today isn't just that she's beautiful, it's that she's proof beauty doesn't need to fight time to stay powerful. She wears her age the way she wears a role, fully, fearlessly, and without apology. And for an actress who once defined perfection, that's the most unexpected evolution of all. But her story wasn't all elegance and control, because behind the calm surface, Michelle faced battles that few ever saw. For someone who has built a career on elegance and control, Michelle Pfeiffer's path was far from effortless. Behind the calm surface, her journey through Hollywood was marked by quiet battles, the kind most stars never talk about. She faced an industry that loved her beauty, but didn't always know what to do with her intelligence, a system that celebrated her looks but resisted her depth. From the very beginning, Michelle had to fight the label that followed her everywhere, too beautiful to be taken seriously. Casting directors pigeonholed her into roles that showed her face but silenced her voice. It wasn't until Scarface that she shattered that perception, and even then she had to prove herself again with every new film. The irony, the same quality that made her unforgettable, was the one thing that often worked against her, and fame came with its own kind of trap. In the late 80s and early 90s, when every magazine wanted her on the cover, Michelle began to feel the weight of perfection. Every flaw was magnified, every moment off camera became a headline. Unlike many of her peers, she didn't spiral or lash out. She simply retreated. But that retreat came with whispers. Some called her difficult. Others claimed she was detached, cold, or uninterested. Few realized that what looked like distance was actually survival. Then there were the darker moments, the ones she rarely discusses. Early in her career, she was drawn into a self-improvement cult that disguised itself as a wellness group. It promised enlightenment, but nearly drained her emotionally and financially. She escaped before it went too far, calling the experience a wake-up call that taught her how vulnerable fame can make people. It was a reminder that even the strongest faces in Hollywood have cracks beneath the surface. And yet Michelle's way of handling adversity was never through public outbursts or statements. She endured quietly, letting her work do the talking. While others fought for headlines, she fought for meaning. Every comeback, every transformation, every new chapter in her career came not from reinvention but from resilience. That's why today, when she stands before cameras, she doesn't look like someone who's fought to stay relevant. She looks like someone who's earned her peace. Her challenges didn't define her, they refined her. Michelle Pfeiffer has always been Hollywood's mystery, the actress who never needed to scream to be heard. And maybe that's why, decades later, people still lean in when she speaks. Because after all the noise fades, what remains is truth, and Michelle Pfeiffer has quietly built a legacy on it. When people talk about Michelle Pfeiffer today, they often start with the same sentence: "She looks incredible for 67. But the truth is, that's the least interesting thing about her. What makes her remarkable isn't how she's preserved the past, it's how she's embraced the present. Michelle's story isn't about staying young, it's about staying true. She's lived through every version of Hollywood, from the neon glamour of the 80s to the streaming chaos of today, and somehow she's managed to evolve without losing herself. Every stage of her life has been marked by a quiet defiance, a refusal to become what others expected. She could have been another headline, another fallen star, but instead she became something rarer, a reminder that longevity isn't built on noise, it's built on grace. Her retreat from Hollywood wasn't an exit, it was a recalibration. Her return wasn't about reclaiming fame, it was about reclaiming joy. And in doing so, she's shown an entire generation of women and men that relevance doesn't come from chasing attention, it comes from owning your story. Standing at 67, Michelle Pfeiffer is still captivating, not because she's untouched by time, but because she wears time so beautifully. You can see the wisdom in her smile, the calm in her eyes, the quiet confidence of someone who's lived through storms and decided they no longer define her. She's not trying to compete with her younger self, she's outgrown her completely, and maybe that's the secret. The reason you can't help but gasp when you see her today isn't just about appearance, it's about presence. She's the kind of woman who makes aging look less like a loss and more like a reward. Every line, every change, every shift in her energy tells the same story. This is what it looks like when you evolve without fear. In a world obsessed with reinvention, Michelle Pfeiffer has done something even harder. She's stayed real. Her legacy isn't just written in the films she made or the awards she won. It's written in the way she chose to live, on her terms, at her pace, in her own quiet power. So yes, she's 67. Yes, she's still breathtaking, but maybe the real reason we can't look away is because somewhere deep down, we all want to age the way she has, with courage, with grace, and without apology. And that's the kind of beauty that never fades,